Hello everyone, welcome to today's Modex 3D Technical Forum. I'm Raul from the Modex 3D EMEA team and I am mainly supporting the technical issues in our team. And today I'm going to introduce to you about the calculation method. And after the introduction, I will tell you how to do the installation according to the different calculation method you would like to use. Okay, so here we need to do a brief introduction about the definition of your computers that we later will talk about. The first one is the client. The client is the computer you do the pre-process and the post-process. We will we will need to make the mesh and we will need to set up the computation parameters and also the process parameters in the project. And that's what we did in the client. And also you would like to read the result by the Modex 3D software. So the client is basically the place that we set up the project and read the result. And about the calculation server, they only do the calculation. So yeah, this is the definition, and later on we can give you a more idea about the calculation method. So here is the calculation method we have. First, we have the local host, which is using a single computer to do the setup and the calculation. And second, we have a calculation method which is called the remote computing. And the remote computing, you can upload the project to another computer to do the calculation. The third calculation method is the cluster. You can upload the project to a lot of computers to do the calculation at the same time, so you can save a lot of time from the calculation. In the local host, we will use the same computer as the client and the calculation server. So basically, you use one computer to set up the mesh, set up the process setting, and then send the calculation to your own computer to finish the calculation. That's why we call it the local host. So the client and the calculation server must be a same computer. The second is the remote computing. So when it comes to the remote computing, for example, if you use your laptop as the client, so you can make the mesh and set up all the settings on your own computer. And then after that, you can upload the project to do the calculation, so you can do other jobs on your own computer without slowing down your own computer. And after the calculation is finished, you can download the result from the calculation server onto your own computer, which is the client. Okay, so this is the remote computing. And third one is the cluster. The cluster is kind of complicated, but the idea is really simple. The client and server can be different computers. So the client will finish the setup and then upload the project to one computer, which is the master node. And the master node will separate all the jobs into the computing nodes. So all the computers together will work on the same project, and then they finish the calculation. The client can download the result again from all these computers. And why do we have the cluster is because some of our users are really heavy users, so they need the cluster mode to further improve the calculation speed. Okay, so basically this is the three different types of the calculation method. And the next, we need to talk about the difference between each calculation method. So first, for the local host, we don't need to take care of the internet settings because we use the same computer as the calculation and the process setting. So you use your own computer to set up all the things in the project, and then after that, send the calculation on exactly the same computers so you don't go through the internet settings. During the installation, you also only need to install the standard package of the Modex 3D. And for the next one is the remote computing. For the remote computing, you need to install the item, which is called remote computing component. And there is a description as the single node mode. And with the selection of this item, you can only use one computer as the computation machine. So different from the cluster, with the remote computing method, you can only use one computer as the computation machine to finish the calculation. So the idea is like this. You have one computer as the client, and then you can upload to another one computer to finish the calculation and then download the result from that computer. So this is the idea for the remote computing. The last one is the cluster. Cluster mode, you need to install the cluster mode configuration and the remote computing component in each single computer that you would like to use as the computing node. So make sure you make the installation on each computer that you would like to use, and then you could use all these computers as the computation machines, so you can increase the calculation speed quite a lot. And there is something to be mentioned before we really go into the introduction of the installation. First thing is both remote computing and the cluster mode, we need to set an account for the access of the internet settings. So later on, we will see how to set up the account in the live demo. And the next thing is the user could only choose either remote computing or the cluster during the installation. So you cannot choose remote computing and the cluster at the same time. You can only choose to do the calculation with one computation machine or with multiple computation machines. Okay, so here we would like to go on to the installation. So here is the Modex 3D installation program. First, we will need to accept the terms and the conditions of the license agreement. Second, in here, we need to set up the license settings. And in here, we will skip this part because this is not a main issue that we would like to discuss. Here is the installation of the programs. And here is also the place that we would need to select the method of the calculation during the installation. So if you only want to use the localhost, you can select this one and then click on next, and then you are able to use the localhost on your own computer. But what if you want to use the remote computing? Then you must click on this one, which is the remote computing component. And then you click on this one and then click on the next. And during the next page, you will need to set up the computing account that you would like to use later. And then click on next. Then the installation will take care of the rest of the things automatically. Okay, so what if we want to use the cluster mode? So if you want to use the cluster mode, you only need to click on the third item, which is the cluster mode configuration. And you can see that if I click on the cluster, the remote computing is deselected simultaneously. This is because we are not allowed to have remote computing component and the cluster mode configuration on the same computer. So either you choose the remote computing to do a computation with one single computer, or you can choose the cluster mode to set up the multiple computers as the computation machine. Okay, so what if we select the cluster mode? You could see in here, we also need to set up the account and the password that you would like to use for calculation. And also in here, you will need to select the IP or the address of the node that you would like to use during the calculation. So here, for example, I can select this one as the computation machine that I would like to use. And this IPs is the computer that you are using right exactly now. Click on next, and then you can do the installation of the cluster. Okay, so this is the introduction about the calculation method. And if you like our video, please subscribe our YouTube channel so you could receive the newest information or newest technical form from the Modex 3D Europe team. Thank you for today's listening. See you next time. Bye bye.